Thank you very much, and I'm very honored to be here and to offer some thoughts about our topic on the future of work. And I'm going to be conditionally a little bit more optimistic than we have been so far, because I want to regard the technological advances as a real opportunity, not only a threat. I believe that the technological advances, if put in the context of a moral economy, offer tremendous advances for us. And I want to use my presentation to explain the conditions under which such advances can be for the common good. So this picture exemplifies not only the future of manufacturing, but the present in many sectors. We already have assembly lines, especially in the automotive sector, but in many others as well, that are already almost completely roboticized. Even 10 years ago, Sonia and I walked through a Toyota plant where there were no people in the whole factory, but they were assembling every variety of make and model, and not in batches, but one after another, with the robots able to reconform depending on which particular model was the one under assembly. So they were very flexible, very dynamic, very quiet, very clean, and producing high quality automobiles. Now, there's some basic economic ideas that I think are at the crux of our discussion, and I want to emphasize them. The first is that machines, smart machines, raise total output, but shift income from workers that are replaced by the machines towards owners of the machines and towards workers who design and manage the machines. So there are two effects, always. There is a rise of overall production, and there is an income distributional shift. Those can be considered basic. The rise of output is an opportunity. The shift in income distribution is a challenge. But we have to combine the opportunity and the challenge. Now, historically, improved machines have replaced physical and repetitive labor, such as the labor of someone turning one screw or one wrench on the assembly line. The robot does that. Because it's repetitive, it is physical work, and machines have tended to replace that kind of labor. At the same time, machines have tended to increase the demand for managers, professionals, and technical workers. The process is well known, and it's sometimes called skill-biased technical change. You raise output, but you also change the relative demands or relative returns in the marketplace for different kinds of work. Unskilled, repetitive work that requires less training, lower levels of education, less preparedness, tend to be replaced sooner by the machines. And high-skilled work tends to be augmented in demand by the machines. In examining the net effects of any rise of technological change, we therefore have to consider two phenomena. One is the market phenomenon. What happens when such technology spread through the market and change supply and demand? By themselves, the normal effect is a rise of output and a shift of relative earnings away from the replaced workers towards the kind of workers that are benefited, and towards capital, the owners of the machines or the owners of the intellectual property that runs the machines. But then there are the political outcomes. These are the taxes and transfers that redistribute market income among different groups in the economy, and also that finance training and education. So we can't tell the net effect of any technological change unless we look both at the market outcomes and at the political outcomes together. If you just look at the market outcomes, it can look very dismal. If you look at the market outcomes and the political outcomes together, it can look beneficial. There are three basic principles. First, in principle, technological advances can improve incomes and living standards for all workers if the market outcomes are complemented by suitable political outcomes. In other words, this is a basic theorem. If you have more output to distribute and you distribute it ethically and morally, you can benefit everybody from that. Being afraid of the technology per se is probably not the right starting point. So the first point is it's possible to have what Stefano this morning called a Pareto improvement. That is an improvement in the positions of all members of the labor force if the market outcomes and the political outcomes are suitable. Second, higher living standards can and should be manifested not only through higher incomes, that is higher wages, but also through more leisure time, more flexible and healthful working conditions, and more satisfying work tasks. By the same token, lower living standards will generally be manifested in lower wages, less leisure, less flexible work conditions, and less satisfying work tasks. The reason I emphasize this is that when there's a technological improvement, we shouldn't look only to the question, are the wages better or is there enough work? We should look to the holistic dimension of work. Does this technological advance allow more leisure time? Does it allow better work conditions? Does it allow more safety? Does it produce more health or less health? We want a holistic view, and we should not expect that technological change only keeps the amount of work the same, but changes the work that's done. One of the things that technology absolutely can do is provide more leisure time. And I'm going to emphasize that that's not a bad thing, that is a good thing. Third, we should aim for more leisure time and more rewarding leisure time that enables human beings to learn, to grow, to deepen their social relations, and to engage more broadly with the world. This is a feasible objective. We should not only be thinking of toil. We should not only be thinking of work. We should be thinking about the quality of lives that technology makes possible. We should be using technology in design to improve the quality of lives. And I want to recall this wonderful classic by Joseph Pieper, Leisure, the Basis of Culture. It is a paean to leisure. He says that he was writing in the late 1940s, saying that all those who talk about the need for work, the need for work, the need for hard work, don't understand that our quality of life depends on leisure. Aristotle put it, and it's quoted in Pieper, we are unleisurely in order to have leisure. Of course, for Aristotle, leisure meant the time for contemplation, the time for philosophy, the time to have the higher qualities of life. This is very important, and Pieper points out that the word in Greek, skole, actually is a dual meaning. One is school, and the other is leisure. So the idea that school and leisure as the basis of culture went together in the minds of the ancient Greeks, I think is a very important point. So, good news, we have been replacing hard work with machines for more than a century. And there is a huge benefit from this. It's hard to see, but what this shows is that the working time, that is the number of hours per year worked, fell by 50% between 1870 and 1992. People used to work long, hard, drudgery hours. And now, because of machines, there's much more output per person and much less physical, arduous work time. That's a plus. All through the modern advanced economies, the working time per person has declined by roughly 50%. It has made life much more pleasurable, much more healthful. It has given time for, of course, in the best instance, for learning, for exploration, for friendships, for camaraderie. In the worst instance, for watching television 8 hours a day. But it does give more time, and this is important. Average working hours per person in the United States, as an example, declined from 2,000 hours per year to about 1,750 hours per year, and they're much lower in many European countries, in fact. So this has been a very significant bonus. Oops. If you look across work life, actually the country that has the lowest average hours of work per year is Italy. I think that this is I think it's very accurate. I think it reflects the Dolce Vita. And Italy, France, Spain, and Greece. The Mediterranean, which is at the cradle of our culture. Yes, Catholic knows how to live, because obviously this is the closest to Aristotelian thought of all. And indeed, the average working hours per 16 to 65-year-old now is about 3 hours per day. This is quite wonderful. It's about 3 hours per day, taking into account that only around 70% of that age group actually is engaged in work. 30% may be home with children, or in retirement, or on vacation time at any time, or in school. And then the work hours per person have declined significantly. Now, of course, there is other work-related time associated. Commuting time is about 30 minutes per day, getting to and from work on average. And then there is the housework, which used to be many hours, but now is 2 or 3 hours a day. And there's shopping time as well, which is about 20 to 30 minutes a day on average. So if you consider all of that paid and unpaid work, it comes out to 5 or 6 hours a day, leaving time for sleep, for personal care, and for leisure with friends, or on your computer screens, or in sports, or in recreation and travel. What is happening in our labor markets has both the good, the bad, and the dangerous. And our job is to get the good out of this, not to deny the potential good and neglect that, but rather to focus on what needs to be done so that these technical changes are positive for all. So what are the changes that are underway? In the left-hand column, which is a little bit hard to read, it shows which sectors of the economy are growing in jobs and which are declining. The jobs that are declining at the bottom include, most importantly, the manufacturing sector. Not because output in manufacturing is going down, but because the manufacturing is becoming a lot more robot and artificial intelligence intensive. So we're losing jobs in manufacturing, in agriculture, in mining, the so-called goods-producing sectors, and the jobs that are growing are overwhelmingly the service economy jobs, and the ones that are growing most are educational services, healthcare and social assistance, professional and business services. Now, there's a notable point about that. The jobs that are being lost are the jobs that have been filled by high school educated workers. The jobs that are in demand are the jobs that are being filled by bachelor's degree or advanced degree workers. So the changes that are underway are raising output, shifting income towards the skilled and away from the lesser skilled, widening the inequality of income in the market terms. Not in the final terms, because that depends on politics. That depends on whether the higher wealth of the owners of business and the skilled workers are sufficiently taxed in order to help the lower skilled workers get more training, more education, or to have wage subsidies, or to have their health and employment needs met. But the changes that are underway structurally potentially could benefit everybody, not in terms of market forces, but in terms of the combination of markets and politics. The graph on the right shows that it is indeed the higher skilled sectors where more analytical skills are needed that are being paid more, and where the wages are growing more. So the trend is to more inequality based on market forces. The top graph similarly shows that the jobs that are growing are jobs where there is a higher level of job preparation needed, mainly education and training, and the jobs that are more stagnant require less training. And an overwhelming proportion of workers shown in the bottom slide say that it is essential that training and skills development should accompany them throughout their entire working life, because we are increasingly a skill-based economy, no doubt. Now, the trend means that in market terms, the share of income going to labor has been going down. The share of income going to profits and going to intellectual property has been going up. The share of labor that goes to higher skilled labor has been going up. The share of labor that goes to lower skilled labor has been going down. So the winners in market terms are capitalists, owners of technology, and skilled workers. The losers in market terms are those with a lower level of education. The economy as a whole has been growing sharply because we have new opportunities and more productive machinery. Now, this graph just gives a basic illustration. Maybe it's a little bit busy to understand, but start with an initial situation on the left-hand side, where the total national income is 100. It's divided 30 to the owners, 40 to high education workers, and 30 to low education workers. Then come the machines, new robotics. In market terms, what happens? The owner's equity goes up. The stock market booms. The owners go from having 30 to 50. Higher education workers see more market demand. Their wages go from 40 to 50. Lower educated workers see their market demand fall. Their wages go from 30 to 20. Overall, you see that the economy is larger. It's now a GDP of 120 when it was previously a GDP of 100. So the economy has increased, per capita income has increased, but the income distribution has adversely affected one segment of society, lower skilled workers, and it has benefited two classes of society, the equity owners and the higher skilled workers. Now, to turn this into a Pareto improvement in which everybody gains is not hard to do. Tax the rich. And in this little illustration, put a levy of wealth on the rich, on the owners of 15 of their income. So tax out of 50, tax 15 away, and then they end up with 35. The high education workers end up still with 50, and the wage subsidy paid to the lower wage workers leaves them with 35. So with a little bit of income redistribution, everybody benefits. You would not want to eliminate the technology. You would just want to say that since the rich have gotten a lot richer, they should pay a higher tax, and the result then is that all classes would benefit from the smarter machines. Of course, this is a little cartoon, but the illustration is right, that it is possible to take a larger pie and to divide it through taxes, transfers, education subsidies, universal access to health care, universal basic income, or other means, and have everybody benefit. Here's another extreme case. This is the case people talk about. What if machines can outcompete humans in everything? Well, the market force would then mean that Mr. Bezos would own everything. Or maybe Mr. Bezos, Mr. Gates, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, they would own everything because their computers would do everything. There would be no demand for workers, but they would own an economy even larger in output than the original economy. Of course, this would make us all slaves to the few owners of the capital and intellectual property. But how could everybody benefit? Well, think of it a different way. Suppose really the machines could do everything. Could life be better off if all of the drudgery and hard work were taken over by machines? The answer, of course, is yes, if the benefits are shared equally or well. And so one obvious answer to this picture is put a wealth tax on the owners and turn that into universal basic income. And there you have it, everybody wins in this case. Everybody has an easier life, more improved life, more leisure time, higher safety, health, as long as they know what to do with their leisure time. But in principle, the point is, don't just stop at the market forces. This is an application of the universal destination of goods. This is a core, correct doctrine of the church, which is that the earth belongs to everyone. The resources of the economy belong to everyone. Do not think about the economy stopping at the market outcomes, because that's perfectly arbitrary. Market is just one institution for allocating resources. Politics is the other institution for allocating resources, the other main institution. Of course, charity and good works is a third way. But we should think of government in the Aristotelian sense of aiming for the common good, in the church's sense of aiming for the common good, politics for the good, not politics for Mr. Machiavelli and Mr. Bezos and Mr. Trump. And then we have a way to achieve improvement for everybody. There's another way that this outcome can manifest itself. Many, if not most, of the fruits of artificial intelligence could be made available for free. We already benefit for free from GPS, which, if you have a tendency to get lost like I do, is very helpful. We don't pay for GPS. We don't pay for Google Maps. We don't pay for our emails. We don't pay for many crucial services right now. We don't pay for music streaming or video streaming. Maybe sometimes more we should, but we don't. We don't pay for online education, which is now freely available in many places. We don't have to pay for online health care, at least for monitoring of certain crucial health data. We can get online media for free, although it's filled with fake news. We can get online banking for free. We can get online e-governance, typically or increasingly for free. We will soon have the ability at home to do 3D printing of things that we need with blueprints freely available. And so we'll get lots of manufactured goods when we need to make a repair in our sink. We will make it at home in a 3D printer very routinely. Our coffee machine will never break down again because we will be able to replace the parts for free, and so on. But the point I'm making is that with a little bit of constructive design, with a little bit of orientation of the ownership of intellectual property, even if the wages go down, they can be compensated by the vast plethora of free online services that would make the quality of life higher. So, do the thought experiment. Suppose that most income eventually comes through universal basic income or free goods. What would we do with our time? And I think that this is a very important thought experiment because the technology will enable us to use our time differently. We shouldn't start with the question, where are the new jobs going to come from? We should start with the question, what are we going to do in the future if the computers and artificial intelligence and remote sensing and other systems can really do a great deal? Well, first, we would want to work, most of us, but only in desirable work. So we would not want the drudgery. We would want quality work. What does quality work mean? It means work that you don't need to be paid for, essentially. Work that is healthful, it's creative, it's pleasurable, it's meaningful, it's flexible, it offers outlets for compassion and caring, and it's skill enhancing. Many of us, if we didn't earn a dime, would be happy to continue to work because we're honing our skills, we're providing services, we're doing good for the community, we're making art, we're creating things that are part of the meaning of our lives. So we would aim for desirable work. Certainly, I think we would aim for less commuting time. There are many surveys which ask people about the quality of their time allocation. And it turns out that the two worst moments of the day for most people, the worst moment of the day is being with your boss. This is a repeated finding of time use surveys. The second worst moment of the day is commuting. People don't like the commuting in general. Well, we won't have to commute because we can telework, as we saw. We can design work in ways that are more pleasant. I have a wonderful job myself at the university. I rarely go into the office. It's almost all telework now from wherever. That's, of course, just it's not to brag, it's to say how pleasurable it is. It's the kind of work that one would like to do. We also don't have to go to the Walmart as often because it turns out it is much more efficient to have delivery through e-commerce. This is a little bit surprising, but the time that is saved in going to and from shops by using big data in order to deliver goods efficiently saves a lot of trucking time, it saves the atmosphere, it saves energy, and it saves our personal time. And so actually e-commerce is potentially an enormous plus for us, which is why, despite the fact that I don't like Mr. Bezos from what I know about him, how he comports himself, I do use Amazon every day almost to buy books. And this is part of the attractiveness of e-commerce. And third, we would want more leisure time, I believe, most of us, for study, for hobbies, for friends, for caring, looking after people, looking after loved ones, for travel, for retirement. So the idea that we're only after finding the different jobs, I think, is wrong. So one way to check that is to look at how people who are lucky in their employment actually are working. If you look across countries, we saw in the previous presentation that it is the Scandinavian countries that are doing the most telework, that are doing the most work at home, the most flexible work. This is a sign of the future, I believe. As an old famous expression goes, the future is already here, just unevenly. So if one wants to see the future, look to what Denmark or Norway or Sweden is doing right now, and they're doing a lot of flexible work and a lot of online work. Turns out that those with advanced degrees are working at home because they like that, and their jobs enable them to do that. So this is a different kind of income inequality, a job satisfaction inequality. 47% of those with an advanced degree work from home. Only 11.9% of those with a high school diploma do some work from home. Those with an advanced degree work fewer hours on average than those with less than a bachelor's degree. So what are the key steps in my mind for using the machines to improve our lives and livelihoods? First, public financing of education and lifelong learning. Second, an emphasis on open source intellectual property, free goods. Third, active monitoring and reporting of job satisfaction so that we are steering jobs in the right direction. Fourth, a new curriculum at our business schools or at our universities on job design for life satisfaction. It is misery how little training there is for good, healthful job design. Fifth is a very active fiscal redistribution of income. The pie is growing, but it is being commandeered by the very top. The sixth is worker representation through unions and co-determination so that workers are shaping their work environment. The seventh is legal responsibility of corporate boards to the well-being of workers. This is the multi-stakeholder corporation. And the eighth is the promotion of increased leisure time, vacation time, and family leave time as a good for society. If these are all possible, why is it not happening? Well, I think we know why it's not happening. We just have one obstacle, it seems to me, and that is the power of the elites who are benefited by these changes and who are so far calling the shots. This is the rankings this morning of the wealth of the top 15 people in the world. Mr. Bezos this morning had $108 billion of wealth in his bank account. It's at least $10 billion more than he needs. Actually, it's almost $108 billion more than he needs. Bill Gates, $107 billion. If you add them up, 15 people had wealth this morning of $1 trillion. 1 trillion, 15 people. This is, no economy should look like this. This is an abomination by itself. It is an utter aberration of how market forces are used to stymie politics. But this is, in my view, our most important target, which is that the pie has grown. We have absolutely unnatural, ghastly distribution of income. Most of this wealth is held in the technology sector. Look at the 6 technologists on the list: Bezos, Gates, Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, Larry Page, and Sergey Brin. That's about $400 billion, just the 6 people. And this is what we are really facing. We need a global digital strategy to tax big tech, to break up the tech monopolies, to oversee the applications of artificial intelligence, and, by the way, to urgently demilitarize artificial intelligence as well. I mention this because one of the reasons why these people have so much power is that they are utterly entwined with the military. The big tech companies are the handmaidens of warfare now, and this is part of the reason for their power. They are writing the code for the Pentagon. They are writing the code for the drones. They are writing the code for the new robotics battlefield. And this is one of the reasons why we are unable to control this sector adequately. Thank you.